got to slow it down. You got to hire slower because your pain is in the fact, and I believe that almost every problem you can find inside of a business with a team member starts with the hiring process. Usually it's going to be like, we got this person, they're really, really good at what they do, like technically skilled well, but man, everyone hates them. Oh, okay. Let's talk about how you hired them. What did you talk about? What were the questions you asked? How did you implement your systems? How did you find out how this person was working in their other job? And most people don't.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneurs Podcast. Today, I'm joined by arguably, and I say arguably because Doug Shaw is still in the equation, by arguably the best dancer in orthodontics. One might often say let's say he's the most passionate dancer in orthodontics, but everybody put your hands together and welcome the amazing, the light on his feet, Dr. Dino Watt. I like Dr. Dino Watt.
Doctor. Well, thank you. My mom will be proud.
Well, technically, we're going to get into a little bit about the practice you now own in Arizona. So, I mean, you could pretend if you wanted to, but he's not a doctor, but he's certainly number one in our hearts. Welcome, Dino.
Thank you very much. And I've always thought about, I seriously, for probably 20 years, I've thought about having a TV show or a radio show called Not a Dr. Dino. Because, I'd be like Dr. Laura and you got Dr. Phil and you got all stuff. And I was like, oh, not a Dr. Dino giving out advice. So
it's funny. I want to see where a lot of these people are 20 years down the road. Right. I don't remember what movie it was I was watching the other day, but they had, I can't remember her name. Oh, it was Nancy Grace. Remember Nancy Grace?
Oh yeah.
I don't know where it became of her, but she was like everywhere. It was one of those experts who was on TV all the time. And she was always screaming about
talking heads.
But I haven't seen, right? You haven't seen her in years, right?
Yeah, I know she's on Sirius still. She's on Sirius Radio.
She's got
a radio show.
There you go. The Nancy Grace spotting by Dino. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I joke and I don't joke. I say, because Doug Shaw is arguably the most underrated dancer in orthodontics, because
I don't know. I will put Dr. Ock in there too. Dr. Ock's got some moves.
Ock is definitely a great dancer. And I'm sure right now there's many people listening who are like, I'm a great dancer too.
What about me?
I'm a great, and I'll tell everybody right now, I'm the worst dancer in orthodontics. I can say that safely. Nobody has, you ever see, what was the name of that movie? Not Best in Show, the mockumentary about the dance. Or no, it was Best in Show. The guy was walking the dog and he has two left feet. He was really, I have two left feet. That is literally me. I'm Eugene Levy from Best in Show. That's me dancing.
You just have to do the hitch thing, right? All you have to do is just stay right here. This is your zone. This is it. This is
place right here. I'm not leaving.
Don't move. None of the stuff. Yeah.
But maybe there should be an ortho dance off at some point, right?
Ooh,
that'd be a great.
Well,
idea.
We did have one once at a Relapse concert. As a matter of fact, I think it was the first time I saw Relapse perform. They did this like dance off where they had us go on stage. And now I love to dance in groups. I love to have fun choreography wise. But what's odd is I really don't like dance all that much. I mean, I'll have fun with it or whatever, but I'm just not I'm just going to go out and go crazy dance. So they had a dance off and I lost. I was told I should have won, but it was me with some females and I did my best.
And that's all anybody can ask for. But yeah, you're saying John Travolta. You're not clearing the dance floor.
Yeah, I'm not going to go up there and just like, excuse me, pardon me. Yeah,
out of my way. Clear off the dance floor like this.
That's right.
But here's my question: line dancing, yay or nay?
Yeah,
yay?
Yeah. I actually really enjoy some line dancing. Matter of fact, my wife and I were just talking about this the other day here in Arizona. We're trying to find a couple of places that will do some evening line dance stuff because I think that's fun when you get together with a group of people. And didn't we do that at an OP Summit once? Wasn't OP Summit
about any knowledge of any line dancing anywhere?
We were somewhere. I can't remember where, but there was like a country bar.
There was some line dancing involved somewhere at an OP Summit at some point.
Yeah.
But you're arguably one of the most well-liked, well-known people in orthodontics from a speaker's perspective. I've never heard anybody say a negative word about you. You're just
that's why I had Shannon lead before we started.
If you want to be humbled, make sure your wife is around. But for those who may not know your story, do you mind giving people a little bit of background about how you ended up to where you are today, and then we can dive in a little deeper into a few other things?
Of course. Yeah, I actually had no idea I'd be in the orthodontic space whatsoever about 15 years ago. I was doing a lot of couples kind of, people call it therapy, but it was more coaching for higher end entrepreneurs. My earlier background, I started in the movie industry, movie and television. I grew up totally believing that's where I would be, movies, television. I'd have my own talk show and my own sitcom. That was my goal.
Wow.
And got into Hollywood, but got married at a very young age as well. My wife and I got married when I was 22 and she was 23, and had kids about 3 years later. And it's just not conducive living in Hollywood and trying to make a career there. And I realized that pretty quickly after having our third kid in 3 years. That was not my fault. My wife just couldn't keep her hands off me.
You had nothing to do with it.
I had nothing to do with it. I don't even remember any of it. I was just like, all of a sudden we had kids. And so we had 3 kids in 3 years and just realized I needed to do something else. I really always loved relationships, loved connecting with people. Obviously, coming from background, my parents divorced when I was really young. I always cared about relationships that way and realized I could make a career at it. I started coaching people, and it just kind of was that referral game. There's this great quote from a friend of mine that says, "You never get anywhere in life without somebody vouching for you." And my friend Garrett Gunderson started vouching for me with all of his high-end clientele. And I was dealing with these people who were really incredibly popular people in their spaces, and I was helping them with their relationships. And one night I got a call from Dr. Scott Law, who we both know very well. And he said, "Hey, I heard about you from Garrett Gunderson. I would like some support with my relationship with my wife. Can you come help me?" And we ended up going to help him out. And all of my conversations were around business. So I would promote marriage through business principles. So mostly for men, so they would actually listen and they go, "Oh, I can talk business if I don't have to talk about my feelings." And Scott was asked me to come and talk to him and his team there in Killeen, Texas, back when it was just Central Texas Orthodontics back in the day.
Right.
And he was just starting the idea of Smile Doctors. And he just came to me and said, "Dino, nobody's talking like you in our industry. No one's doing this. Will you come speak at this event and this event?" And just kind of started the ball rolling. And I found this wonderful space of orthodontics where we had this connection of um, creativity, right? Our artistry, understanding mechanics and science, and then people who had actually never been taught how to run a business before. And so I just kind of merged them together. And that just started me back on this road. And it's been really amazing. Now it's branched out to um, optometry, financial coordinating. I actually had a cannabis dealer that I worked with too. So it's been really, really cool.
A cannabis dealer.
I will not confirm or deny if he paid me in product or not, but
Yeah. Don't say a word. Nobody's allowed to know. I knew that story about you and the relationship coaching. And I
Mhm.
want to go back there for just a second because,
Yeah.
I've been married. It'll be 31 years this August.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a great ride. Anybody who's been married that long who says it's always been roses is full of crap.
Yeah, totally.
There have been those tough conversations around the kitchen table,
Mhm.
about money, relationships. I mean,
Sure.
you go through ups and downs, but I'm absolutely madly in love with my wife. I think she likes me.
Mhm.
I hope she does, right?
It's more important than love.
Is like,
Like is more important than love.
I don't disagree because now that
Yeah.
our kids are basically out of the house,
Mhm.
we find ourselves gravitating towards each other, not away from each other, right? Like you hear too often from people, the kids are out of the house and they split up because they. And I have two questions I want to ask you. The first one goes just I was giving sort of preamble to the best advice I was ever given was by a guy who was getting divorced years and years
Mm.
ago, and I said to him, I'll make up a name, Joe. I said,
Mhm.
"Joe, what advice would you give me? I've only been married about 5 years at this point." And his advice rung true, and I followed it to this day, and I'd love your feedback. He said, um, "Go for therapy when things are good." And that's what we did. We started going for therapy when things were good because we weren't fighting on any one specific item. And when the tough times came, we had but A, do you agree? And B, do you think that the average person is willing to put that time and energy in when things are good? Or do you think they just wait until it gets to a breaking point? Now let's go get therapy.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that people usually wait until it's that breaking point, and usually it's men who will wait the longest. I have a analogy I used to use called the foolish fireman, where fireman comes home and his wife's like, "Hey, there's a lot of heat over in this corner of the house," and he's like, "Yeah, listen, I deal with this every day. Don't worry, it's not a big deal." And it comes home the next day and she's like, no, 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 this not only hot there, but I actually feel like there's some smoke going on there. It's like, you know what, honey, you're overreacting. It's not a big deal. It'll blow over. And then he comes home the third day and the house is on fire. And he's like, oh, yeah, we got to work on this. And she's like, it's too late. The house is burning down. And that's how a lot of men deal with relationship issues, where she'll say, this is an issue. And she'll just, just whatever, forget it. Until finally, like, the woman is done. And she's like, I'm done. And he's like, no, 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 we can fix it now. So I think that happens quite a bit. Shannon and I kind of always just worked on stuff. When we first got married, we didn't do counseling, haven't done a ton of counseling. I did some with our kids when they were teenagers and stuff. But because my parents divorced at such an early age, my parents both have been married 3 times. So for me to kind of watch that and see that when Shannon and I were talking about our relationship before we even got married, her parents had a very stressful relationship as well. We just said we needed to have better systems and processes, and we made sure that was the number one thing in our relationship, whether it be reading books, talking to people who we knew were therapists, getting into this industry, make sure kind of get into a different headspace as well of what you're trying to work on. And like you said, we're also 31 years in October. It hasn't been like roses all the time either, but there has never been a time where I went, oh, I think maybe this is it. There have been times where we went, hey, we're not on the same page about this. Let's get on the same page. One of the things we put in place very, very early on, and I told her from the very beginning, was you're my number one. Like, there's a hierarchy of appreciation, love, and focus in this family. And even when we have kids, it won't be them.
Right.
And to your point about a lot of couples who split up after their kids grow up, it typically comes down to the fact that we put too much effort on the kids are my world. The kids are the most important thing. My kids, I'm not joking about this, and they will tell you that I had said multiple times when they were growing up, especially when they get into those teenage years, I would have a conversation with them and say, listen, I love you. I will die for you. I'll do anything for you. And mom's number one. Mom's number one. You will not take that space. You're not going to pit us against each other. That's it. Unless there's something harmful or abusive happening, that's it. And that's been really cool in our relationship even to this day. So it's helped out a lot, and my kids totally respect that.
Hey everybody, tickets for Summit 2025 are on sale now. Take a listen to what some of the attendees from Summit 2024 had to say.
This is one of the most unique, most impactful meetings that you can go to as an orthodontist.
It has everything compared to other meetings. Entertainment, the content in the meeting, the speakers, the food.
I learned a lot. It helps the practice, so it really kind of checks all the boxes.
You hope to get something out of it that is going to pay dividends for years to come.
Definitely return on your investment.
We take back a lot to our office.
You get information that you probably don't get easily at any other meeting.
And I love it. I thought you were going to say I sat on my kids and go, hey, I just don't love you. But, you know,
there are days.
I just, you know, Mom, and I don't even remember. I told Glenn Krieger, I don't even remember when you were conceived. But that leads me to the second question I was going to ask, because you're uniquely positioned to be one of the few people who can answer this question fairly. And if you've listened to me talk about it, I've said it literally dozens of times, both from the stage and on the podcast. I've been reading a lot of mental health experts who've said that the statistics would say that today's generation of parents spend more time with their children than any generation before, you know, doing everything for the kids. And yet, when asked, you know, what would they do if they had more free time, their de facto go-to answer is spend more time with my kids, right? And I've seen a lot of mental health experts talk about the fact that this generation of kids and parents are setting themselves up for a nightmare situation when these kids get out of the house. Because the parents' whole being, their whole life, their, excuse my French, because my French is worse than my dancing, their raison d'être, right? Their reason for being is the kids. Soccer practice, lacrosse practice, dance practice, gymnastics, jiu-jitsu. You know, I can't go to that ortho meeting because I need to bathe my kids that night or whatever it might be. And the belief is that these kids don't have the tools to be self-sufficient, and that the parents don't have any reason in life other than the kids, right? The spouse becomes almost secondary in many respects.
Yeah.
Do you see the same sort of trend as an industry professional who has a history working with couples, that this is a somewhat dangerous trend and that people should put their oxygen masks on first before putting it on their kids? Because I see people so overscheduled to their children and so, the word I use is overcommitted, meaning, oh, I can't do that because I have to be at that baseball game. When my parents were great. My dad went to baseball games, but he had business meetings also. And it seems like today's generation is really foregoing the rest of their life so that they can be there for their kids. And if I sound a bit of cynicism, I am, and I apologize. So I spoke too much, Dino. I'll let you take it from here.
No, I think it's a really great question because when you were saying that, my brain and my heart actually went to the kids of what pressure that is to put on those kids. That if I'm telling my kids, you are my whole life, I'm going to be around, I'm a helicopter parent around you and all this stuff. That's so much pressure on them, and it doesn't build the muscle of resilience.
Right.
I would agree. I think that there's this idea that, and maybe it's out of guilt. I'm sure it's out of guilt a lot of times because not just work wise, because we have so many more homes where there's two people working in the home. That's probably part of it, but also the distraction factor. Kids are really being babysat by technology. We know this nowadays. They're focused on technology. They spend more time on technology than they do on television. And we were the television generation, right? I was babysat by the television because my mom was a single mom forever. But they're spending so much time distracted by these other things that the parents almost kind of sometimes feel like they're filling in the gaps with, oh, I'll put more time with you that I can get. And I think it is a disservice in a lot of ways because we now have a generation of workforce that we're seeing who are more cynical, are more, yeah, I'm never going to own a house. So what do I care about payment? I was actually talking to a doctor yesterday who was like, we could offer a $2 an hour raise to a Gen Xer or a millennial, and they're like thrilled. Whereas these Gen Ys are like, okay, whatever, because that's not their motivator anymore. It's not money. It's the experience or whatever it is, because they don't even think they're going to own a house or any of those things moving on. So we're doing this disservice to these kids that they have no resilience in a lot of ways. They have no ability to be on their own and not have everybody coddle them and make sure mom makes it okay. And I don't know where that came from, actually. I mean, the millennial generation, I have my youngest is 25. So right now I have a 25, 26, 27-year-old. And it's really interesting, even in the years between them, the 3 years, of the difference of their personalities. Yes, every kid has personality difference, but their work ethic, their focus, what they believe about their future. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question.
I just remember when I was a kid, and again, I want to beat this topic to death, but my parents, said, go out and play. You're not staying in the house. Get out of here. And, my mother would call for us from wherever we were, and I'd be at somebody's house, and I'd come home. And I think I want to credit my parents' actual hands off with me in my ability to problem solve on my own. And more importantly, to be comfortable in my own shoes alone, right? To entertain myself. On a long car ride, I don't need the electronics. I don't need the radio. I can sit and think and work through problems in my head alone because I was given alone time. And I really wonder what this generation of kids who are genuinely overscheduled and whose parents, again, this is not me, this is statistics. They spend more time with their children than any generation in history. And again, the overwhelming majority believe they're not spending enough time with their kids. And that's where the problem lies. And that's been my soapbox for orthodontics, which is, folks, stop it. Stop spending so much time with your children. Spend more time with your spouse. Spend more time on yourself. Because what's become endemic to our population is, hey, take care of you. I've got that shoulder, it's hurting, my ankle, it's hurting. There's something that's bothering me. My relationship may not be perfect. It could be better, but I got to deal with the kids. I'm going to take care of the kids. I'm like, no. Take care of yourself. Take care of your spouse. You chose your spouse. You didn't choose your kids.
Yep.
I know it sounds cruel and evil, but till death do us part means something.
Listen, the greatest gift you can give to your kids is showing them that you're taking care of yourself and that they can do that too as they get older. I think it's very interesting that you and I grew up in a generation where literally we were put to fear on the nightly news, whatever, that someone's going to kidnap you, right? You go out on the street and if there's a white van, be careful, whatever it is.
Free ice cream.
And 3 ice cream, right? Hey, kid, can you show me how to get where? Like that was drilled into us, yet we still were out there experiencing life. Now there's so much more way to protect children, so much more, whatever. And yet parents seem to be more, oh, I'm worried my kid's going to get kidnapped, or I'm worried something bad's going to happen. So they can't have a social life. They can't go over to a friend's house. They can't do this stuff. They need to be folk and they need to be hovered over. I think it's very interesting how this kind of worked with us, and the psychology behind that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think there's a resilience factor. And putting that into our world with ortho, I do think that there is an opportunity for practice owners to teach that to their team members who haven't learned that.
Right.
And it has to be slow. It's not going to be all at once. But, there's opportunities there to show them there's another way to think about stuff, another way to have critical thinking processes and stuff. And it's not something that you were, I guess, bargaining for when you became an orthodontist and when you went to school, but it is something that is going to be necessary if we are able to train and teach the next generation for a generational career choice, as opposed to just a quick, 2-year, 3-year stint. So
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I've been in dentistry 33 years and I watched my dad's practice before that. And then I always talk about Carol Gugliaro, who I love to death. She was at my bar mitzvah. She was at my wedding. She was my dad's front desk for 30, 40 years. Those days are gone. The Carol Gugliaros of this world who become part of your family today, it's rare. It exists, but like you said, it's a 2, 3, 5 year sort of spin cycle. And I think it's important for us to invest in them. And I'll have conversations with them. And sometimes my mind is blown when I listen to the conversations we're having and say, where did this come from? But to sort of, like you said, work with them little by little to help them understand that there's more out there in this world, that they can dream for more, they can think with critical thinking, right? I even do it with orthodontists. I talk about the question behind the question, right? There's a great book, QBQ, the question behind the question. I was never a very good critical thinker. And I knew I needed to learn how to think better critically. And that book was really helpful in sort of helping to bring together the idea of, I know this is the question in front of you, but that's not the question. The question isn't, why is the practice down? I give it a broad example. My practice is down this year. Well, then we should do this. No, we shouldn't do anything. We should stop and ask the next question. Why is the practice down, right? And if we don't know the answer to that, let's ask the question behind that. And, keep going until the question that you really need to be asking is the one you ask. And so you talked about this generation of hiring. Nobody's plugged into the teams better than you are. If we were going to talk about, the newest generation of hiring and the folks we're bringing in, what advice do you have for orthodontists when they're hiring? I mean, is there look, A, there's nobody applying. B, the ones that are applying in many cases are not really great applicants. Do we just, like the old song says, Dino, if you can't be with the one you want, love the one you're with? Do we just lower our expectations and recognize that, we're going to try to help motivate them and move them in the right direction once they're in and just get somebody? How do you navigate today's hiring environment?
Okay, well, it's a great question. And it's so convoluted and complex because there's so many different ways to look about it. But I think one of the biggest things we have to look at is the way we've hired people, other than the fact that we've gone online with applications versus an analog application with somebody coming in and hand you a piece of paper, hasn't changed. Like, it's fascinating to me that we have changed so many processes and systems in our world today. Even this alone, having a podcast or having a conversation where you're in Texas and I'm in Arizona, this has all changed, and COVID did a lot of that. But this whole process of how do we find people to work for us hasn't really changed all that much. And we need to think about how we are changing that, especially as small business owners. When I say small to medium-sized business owners, you don't have a conglomerate HR department that is actually able to find people for you. You have to be able to do that yourself. So you got to be willing to do different things. You got to be willing to look for people in different ways. You got to be willing to train your team members how to find people and talk to people outside of work when they see somebody giving great service, when they see somebody who might be a good fit or they just have fun with, to talk to them. And we've all heard the stories about people hiring or finding somebody at a restaurant or at a hotel. And we got to double down on that. The other thing is this, and let me back up, is this is going to be, it's the hardest thing for most people to do. And I know people know it conceptually. And when I say this, they're going to be like, yeah, I know, we've heard that before. But it's just true. Like gravity is a fact. You got to slow it down. You got to hire slower because your pain is in the fact, and I believe that almost every problem you can find inside of a business with a team member starts with the hiring process. Usually it's going to be like, we got this person, they're really, really good at what they do, like technically skilled well, but man, everyone hates them. Oh, okay. Let's talk about how you hired them. What did you talk about? What were the questions you asked? How did you implement your systems? How did you actually find out how this person was working in their other job? And most people don't. Most people don't. I think it's David Harris, who I love his stuff about embezzlement and stuff. Man, that
Yeah,
dude is just
great.
so smart. I love his stories. They're fascinating.
His story of
And
how he got into what he's doing is also amazing. You should ask.
it
sometime.
is. It's fat. He's such a cool guy. And I love his stories, and almost all of them come back to it. You could see it in the hiring process if you actually paid attention. You could see it in did you pick up a phone and talk to the doctor and or ask the previous employer, hey, you know, would you hire this person back? How amazing were they? Talk to me. That process of hiring ahead of time. So slowing down and hiring, and then firing a lot faster. And I know it's just an old adage, right? It was hire twice as fast, fire three times.
Right.
Hire 2 times slower, fire 3 times faster. But it's just the truth. And then the other one is you have to find other ways to find people. Your Gen Zs and your Gen Ys, they want stuff. I did a whole program about how multi-generational communication inside the office. But when you're looking for people, find out what they want and offer that. Your benefits package has to be different than, oh, we offer health insurance. Cool. Like, what else are you offering? What can you do to help people out and get them to be excited about working for you? If not, you're just going to be you're just looking for somebody who's going to, oh, why didn't Sally show up today? She decided to quit today because you didn't actually spend the time to get to know them and understand what their desires and wants are. It's a challenge. I get it. I'm not trying to be flippant about it. I'm a practice owner too. I have to hire people. I just fired 2 people in the last 3 months, and I've hired 2 more people. I get it. I understand what it's like, but you got to have those conversations. I think it was Dave Ramsey. I use this quote a bit, but Dave Ramsey from the Ramsey Corporation, they have a minimum 13 interview process. Most of them are around 20 to 24. And
Wow.
he says the reason why he does that is the longer you let people talk, the more you'll get to know who they are. And that's just the truth. So
Yeah, I agree. I'm a core values kind of hire, open-ended questions, stuff like that. But the second half of it, which I know you talk a lot about, I even got an email this morning from you, from your broad email list about managing people, right? Like what percentage of orthodontists, let's say they hire right, what percentage of orthodontists actually know how to manage effectively, right? They'll manage by saying, I don't manage, my team manages for me. I have a woman who manages, right? Like, what advice would you give orthodontists when it comes to managing? Okay, so you got your team. They're either ideal or they could use a little help, but they're not bad. But you're going to lose them because you're not managing them effectively. If there was one piece of advice you could give orthodontists about becoming better managers, is there anything you would say?
I'm a big fan of the 1 Minute Manager book. I think that that's a really good job of explaining what that piece is about managing. The other book that I'll recommend to everybody here is actually a friend of mine, so I'm a little biased. Clint Pulver's book, I Love It Here, is Clint Pulver is is a great friend. He's an amazing speaker. And he went around and did like an undercover boss type thing, but he actually did it for actually working. He looks like a millennial. He's got the flat top hat. He's a really cool guy. He's an amazing drummer. And he went to big organizations from Shields to the smaller companies that are mom and pop stuff. And he was hired to act like he was going to be a potential hire. And he wore a pin that had a camera in it. And he would go around to the employees as he was doing his working interview and be like, and just ask them questions. So what do you think? Like, did you like the management here? Like, did they treat you well? And people like, oh man, they don't care about me, or the opposite. And he wrote a whole book about this. And it's very fascinating to see how you can manage people better. But definitely understanding the management side of things. And when you say, so I'll just say this, managing people and being a manager, you have to know how to do that. You have to understand how to manage people and then how to manage 2 different things. So those are the 2 books that I would highly recommend as management.
Oh, that's awesome. And again, hopefully people will listen to you and do what you're saying, because I in today's day and age, more than ever, I think managing people is the key to success long term and growing your practice.
Mhm.
I think 20 years ago, we could get away with whatever. You didn't have to be a manager, just pay well, take care of people, be nice, and they stayed around. Nowadays, like you said, Susie decided to tell me at lunch that she doesn't want to be here anymore, right? Or,
And
the fuse is so much shorter. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier, is what people are willing to put up with, right? The people we're raising today are not willing to put up with
it
anything.
totally does. It totally does. And if you act like that as a manager or an owner of a company, I mean, I talk about having staph infections quite a bit, right? About finding who the staph infections are, make sure they're not infecting other people. I really haven't had a lot of incidences where, and I don't tell people who to fire ever. I just ask questions to the owner. I'll be like, so why are you putting up with that? But as a practice owner, even I just saw this recently where, we had a physician's assistant in our office who's a great guy, likable. But I got to tell you, the moment we finally let him go, and we held on to him too long, right? I cut 2 months too long. Should have let him go 2 months earlier. The moment we let him go, the energy in the office completely shifted for the positive.
Amen.
And I'm telling you, he wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't causing problems, but it just wasn't a fit.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a time yet. Very rarely have I had a time where a doctor came to me after, it's like, hey, I finally let him go, where they went, and everybody's pissed off about it. No, they always say, you know what? Everybody's so much happier. You know
I
what?
know.
I should have done that months ago. Yeah.
And I dare say, I've done this a few years. Everybody listening out there, you have that toxic employee needs to go. You're scared to let them loose. They play a key role in the office, and you're afraid to let them go. Go, let them go. And your team will be happier working shorthanded. You will see your team come together in ways you cannot imagine. When you get rid of it, they will come together because you let them go. You'll bring your team closer together, and they'll high five again. And they go, yeah, today was tough, but man, we overcame so much. We were so good. And would you agree? Yes or no? You will
Yeah.
never regret letting go of a toxic individual.
100%. 100%. Here's the deal. I mean, I use two quotes often. One is mine, one is Perry Belcher's. And Perry Belcher's is, the fastest way to ruin a great team member is to tolerate a bad one.
Yep, I've seen that quote.
And then my quote has been, mediocrity becomes the standard when bad behavior gets a pass.
Yeah.
And that bad behavior starts at the beginning. Like if you let one thing go, oh, look, my star employee, they just showed up late 20 minutes without calling anybody, you got to deal with that right away. You don't have to fire them right away. I'm just saying you got to deal with it and correct that behavior. So
yeah, don't let it sit. I know you'll be speaking at Summit this year. So first of all, anybody who's not registered, go to opsummit2025.com. It's the final summit, but you'll be speaking. Your topic is what?
It's about hiring. Actually, it's a different way to look at hiring. I'm going to give I think it's 30, 45 minutes, but I'm going to fire hose everybody with some really interesting ideas on hiring, on questions to ask, on how to get the best performance you can out of people. And we'll see if we can throw in some dancing or something.
I was about to say, there's going to be some dancing. There's always going to be some dancing in there somewhere.
There might be a musical element to it. Maybe not dance. I don't know. But I'm working on a piece right now that I'm really excited about. It's a musical element. I love music. I love just surprising people. I love waking people up in those seats, right? And OP Summit's a great place to do that, because they're coming there to have a different type of experience, not to put any other event down. But they're there to have a different type of experience. They know they're going there for a reason. And so I can't show up and just be like, well, here's my PowerPoint presentation. And
right. I want you to go to Suno. Go to Suno and do your entire presentation as a song. You
I thought you were talking about Suno, like a Japanese restaurant or something. Suno on AI?
Yeah, AI.
I love that thing.
Do the whole presentation as a song.
It's wrong.
I know.
It's totally wrong.
It's unbelievable. What AI is able to allow us to do these days is insane. I've been playing with VOE3, the new Flow by Google. It's a new, they've just updated their system for converting text to video. So you can type in,
I've heard of this.
2 sumo wrestlers dressed as geisha girls, whatever do you want to type in? And they're cooking turkey together. And it'll make, in 30 seconds, it'll make you a video up to 8 seconds long. It really is, you can tell it's version 1.0, because it's not giving you what you really want. But if you look on the web, you'll see some incredible examples of what people have started doing with it. If I were running a creative content agency, I'd be very worried, right? Because that's where I think
Yes.
you're not going to have to send people on site anymore to go take videos and pictures, what have you.
Yes.
You'll be able to create things on your own for your own website, which is kind of crazy to think of. But the other thing you love doing, other than dancing, is doctor appreciation events.
Oh, I was going to
And
say, be very careful here. 'Cause
yeah. Well, my partner Doug and I have talked to you about doing one for us in Dallas.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing and why you do it and why you love doing them so much?
Yeah, I just noticed a few years ago that people are doing. I was having a conversation with a doctor who was putting on this doctor appreciation event, wanting to have me come out and do a speech and do maybe 90 minutes. And I said, okay, so what's the plan for this? You're going to spend a lot of money on this. It's good investment. I believe in them, but what's the plan? So kind of know, like, we hope we get at least like one or two more referrals out of it. I was like, hope is not a good business plan, man.
Hope is
That is
not.
not okay. And who's your follow-up process, or what's your follow-up process? Who's in charge of that? I said, we really don't have that. So I started kind of looking at what a lot of doctors do. And doctor appreciation events for me are the fastest and best ROI I see out there to get an increase of referrals from a really amazing source. Number one source of referrals, always moms, happy patients, right? Number two, doctors, other doctors in your area. And so I started looking at the whole process and thinking, I have a background. When I grew up, my mom was a event planner, a wedding decorator. I did that when I first got when I was in Hollywood. I used to work for a company, and I built up a company around helping organize weddings and wedding coordination. So I have a lot of that background. I thought, I could probably help out in this place of before, during, and after. And there's 3 phases of every event. So are you setting it up right? Are you asking the right people to show up? Are you creating a process where people are going to want to be there? Number 2, during, how are you making this a unique experience for the doctor or for your referring doctors and their team members? And number 3, obviously after, which is the part where most people fail. I bet everybody here is like, yeah, we have a good team organizing it. Yeah, we can have a really cool party. It's the after fact.
Right.
It's how are you doing follow up to make sure you increase not by 1 or 2 referrals, but a minimum of 10, 15, 20% each office. And think about that. If you invite, I was talking to a company this morning, actually, they have about 80 doctors they want to throw invites to. I'm like, great, that's awesome. You have that many referring doctors in the area. 80 doctors, let's just say you get 20 of those offices to actually show up and come. If you just got a 10% increase in referrals, another, let's just say 3 per year in your office, you're looking at a 60 new patients from one party. I would do that every year. I do it every quarter if I could, because now you're increasing. You don't have to worry about Facebook marketing. You don't have to worry about any of that other stuff because you're going to have that. So being able to do it right is powerful. So I've been able to create the Doctor Appreciation Event Blueprint. And now I'm doing actually some joint ventures with some of the marketing companies out there, on Canvas and stuff, to be able to create opportunities for these doctors to increase those referrals. In our world today, having a personal experience with you is way more powerful than just like, oh yeah, we've been referring to you for the last 10 years, so we'll just keep doing that. The competition factor, the new doctors coming in the area, the offices that are doing Invisalign, the dentists that are doing Invisalign, like, we probably don't need to refer them to Dr. Krieger anymore because we can do that in-house. We've got to get them knowing why they need to send their referrals to you. And it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And that's why Doug and I are talking about having you do one for us. If someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, Dino Watt Consulting is my business side of things. DinoWatt.com is more of my speaking and stuff like that. But it's just Dino@DinoWatt.com is very easy to get a hold of me. I'm on all the Instagrams and the Facebooks. If you haven't checked out Facebook today, the day of us recording this, you really should, to see a little baby Dino and Glenn
baby
on there.
Bearded Glenn Krieger, which is just
baby
disturbing at best. At worst, I don't even want to tell you what it looks like. But Dino, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on here. You're such a wealth of information. I feel we're simpatico. Like, there's so many things you say that just resonate so deeply inside of me. And can't wait to have you at Summit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, just thank you for
Vegas,
being
baby.
Vegas, baby. Roll the dice.
I'm gonna see if I can get Donny Osmond to come over and say hi, because that's my idol. So
Well, are you friends with Donny Osmond? Then it
no,
might be
what's weird is I
difficult
have a
for you to
lot
get
of
him to-
people who are.
Yeah, if you know somebody who knows Donny Osmond, tell them to reach out. We'll see if we can get him to Summit. Yeah, it's hard to get somebody
Don't
over.
even tease me. Don't even tease me, Donny.
Is Donny Osmond really your idol?
So Donny Osmond, people who know that music wise, it's like, okay, fine. But when I was a kid, my goal was to be Donny and marry Marie. That was my goal, because he's just a great man. He's kept a career going for 65 years. Like, this is crazy. But yeah, no, I have a whole story of when I met Donny one time backstage, and I was a grown man crying. I was 47 years old and I couldn't put a sentence together.
But
And by the way, to make the point, I DJ Will Smith's party. I've met Steve Martin. I used to work at Hollywood. I am not starstruck. Freak me out.
really, is that special?
Yeah.
So now I'm on a mission, Dino. I'm D&D, Donnie and Dino. I'm gonna figure out how to. If you just rearrange your letters in your name, it's almost Donnie. It's
Almost.
Donnie. But really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for all you do for our profession and helping everybody. And again, people reach out to Dino at dinowatt.com. Did I get that right?
Yep, that's right.
Right, Dino. Until we see each other again next time, thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn.